Good evening. We are not gathered for a quotation. We are gathered for a demonstration. We are not here to file away another inspiring line under philosophy or theology. We are here to translate a line into a life. I am sounds high, sounds holy, and it has been sung, painted, embroidered, and preached. And yet, if you stop to think of the conditions in the common round, fear in the night, pain in the body, lack at the month's end, friction in the home, confusion in the office, you must admit that mere admiration has not changed much. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord isn't, there is mortality. Now that is not poetry. That is diagnosis. There is little or no God presence or God power consciously contacted in the ordinary day. And so you see the marks of absence. Now let me illustrate that. A person can repeat, I am, 100 times before breakfast, and still walk into the same argument at 10 o'clock, the same worry at noon, the same ache at 3. Why? Because I am, as syllables on the lips, is not the same as I, as presence in the heart. The words do not do it. The contact does it. After enough years of this work, you see so much of it that you know definitely. As soon as a contact with God is established, harmony begins to appear. Sometimes first as a quieting within. Fear loses its edge, a softness comes. Then the body follows. Pain eases, function normalizes. Then the circumstances, right activity, surprising provision, a door where there was a wall. Not always spectacular, not always at once, but always in that order, within, then without. And here is the never-told element. Many of you were given the phrase. You were not given the practice. You were told to believe it, to argue for it, to defend it, even to shout it, but not what to do with it inwardly, so that it becomes living contact. The Master did not give slogans. He revealed identity. I am is not a motto. It is a doorway. It is the door you must enter, within, until I is not your thought about God, but the felt presence that thinks you, lives you, acts as you. So tonight we set a measurable criterion. We will not measure by how stirred we feel for 10 minutes in a meeting. It isn't too difficult to be moved in a quiet room. The difficult thing begins an hour later. Progress in this way is measured by remembrance. The degree to which 1 hour from now, 2 hours from now, in the traffic, at the desk, in the kitchen, in the waiting room, you return to I. You pause, you acknowledge, you let the presence come to the fore. Acknowledge him in all thy ways is not poetry, it is a schedule. By the degree of your success in remembering and returning, you will know that the phrase has become the door, and that contact, not words, is restoring dominion. Now, stop to think of what you would be accepting if you believe that God personally sends disease, accidents, poverty, or cruelty. You would be compelled, morally compelled, to blame God for the wreck on the highway, the tumor in the child, the empty cupboard, the betrayal in the office. And if you took that position honestly, you would find yourself in an impossible religion, called to love the very source you believe is striking you. You can't do it. No one can. And that is why, deep down, your heart refuses it. Your heart knows better than some of your creeds. It knows that God cannot be both love and tormentor. It knows that we dare not lay at the door of God the miseries of mortality. Now, let me illustrate that. If the lights go out in this room, we do not accuse electricity of malice. We check the switch, the line, the contact. If the radio carries only static, we do not denounce music. We adjust the tuner until the wavelength is met. So it is with God. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord isn't consciously realized, there is mortality, fear, sin, disease, lack, accidents, and the whole train of human discords. Never forget that. Trouble does not testify to God's activity. It testifies to absent contact. It marks the place where, for the moment, there is little or no God presence or God power consciously operative. And do not, please, translate this into self-condemnation. Don't allow your mind to turn this diagnosis into guilt. We are not setting up a whipping post. We are locating cause so we can apply remedy. If the switch is off, you don't berate the house. You turn it on. If you have wandered from a friend, you don't write a thesis about loneliness. You pick up the phone. The cause is not a wicked God, nor a worthless you. The cause is absence of realized presence. And that can be remedied. After enough years of this work, you see so much of it that you know definitely. As soon as a contact with God is established, harmony begins. First within as peace and quiet authority, then in the body as order, then in affairs as right action and provision. So our task is not to argue about God's will in the presence of discord. Our task is to bring God to bear, to make contact, to let the Spirit be the atmosphere of the moment. That is practical religion. That is sane theology. That is why we insist that I am is not a slogan to be hurled at trouble, but a door to be entered in the silence until presence is felt. And here's the transition you must take with you. The remedy is not new information about God. It is a new inner relationship to the I at the center of your being. Not more words, but contact. Not better arguments, but quiet recognition. We will take that up as we move on, so that I am ceases to be history and becomes the living I that lives you. Now, if that is clear, let us face the next essential. When you read I am, do not think it referred to Moses only, or to Jesus only, or to some figure enshrined in stained glass and history. Stop to think of this. The word I is closer to you than breathing, and nearer than hands and feet. It is the first fact you know before you know anything else. Before you can say, my name, there is I. Before you can say, my thought, there is I. Before you can say, my body, there is I. That I is not a personal ego. That I is not a cluster of memories. That I is not the mind that argues for or against these things. That I is the indwelling life, the living principle that was before your first thought and remains when your last thought is quiet. Jesus was not handing out a slogan. He was unveiling identity. Before Abraham was, I am. Do you see the tense? Not I was, but I am. Eternal. Not confined to a birth certificate, not limited by a tombstone. I and my Father are one. Not a metaphysical puzzle, but a fact of being. The I of your being is one with the source of being. Life itself is God. And that life is the animating center of you. You cannot see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, or smell it. It will not register on an instrument. But it is the very animating fact by which the instruments are held and read. Now, let me illustrate dominion. Say quietly within yourself, I have a body. I have a mind. If you have them, you are not them. Your hand is not the owner of you. You are the owner of the hand. Your mind does not own you. You own the mind. This mind is mine. This body is mine. Therefore, the I that owns is senior to what is owned, governor to what is governed. We were told at the beginning that we were given dominion. Not tyranny over persons, not exploitation of nature, but dominion over the mind and over the body, because the I that you are is life, and life governs its instruments. Practical? Entirely. If I am life, then life governs the body. If I am spirit, spirit governs the mind. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Where spirit is consciously present, the body answers to life's rhythm rather than to fear's suggestion. The mind answers to peace rather than to memory's storms. This is the beginning of freedom, a change of government. Not the body governing life with its reports, but life governing the body with its law. Not the mind dictating reality with its anxieties, but spirit calming and using the mind as an instrument of wisdom. Do not run out now and repeat "I am" at the walls. The instruction is different. Consent. Be still within until the word "I" stops being your utterance and begins to announce itself. You will feel the difference. At first, it is your repetition. Then, quietly, there comes a presence that seems to say itself. That is contact. That is the shift from history to identity, from slogan to spirit. As that I reveals itself, dominion is not seized by effort. It is restored by recognition. And then you will understand why the Master spoke in the first person. Not to set himself apart, but to call you home to the I at the center of your own being. Now, if you have followed me this far, you will see why we speak of a progression. At the start, it is faith. It isn't knowledge yet. It rings true. Something in you says, yes, that is so. You can't prove it. You can't show it to your neighbor. It still is in the realm of faith. That is not a small thing. Faith is the compass set. Faith turns the prow Godward. After enough years of this work, you see so much of it that you know definitely that faith, honored daily, does not remain alone. Evidences begin to appear, what, in modern language, are called demonstrations. Not fireworks usually. Often very quiet things. A quarrel that would have lasted 3 days evaporates in a minute. A bill that had no visible provision is met without strain. A symptom that had authority in your thought is suddenly without sting. As these evidences begin to pile up, your faith deepens. But do you see, even then, it is still largely faith, strengthened by signs. Now, let me illustrate that. The explorers of the North had knowledge, didn't they? Peary, Bird, long before they reached their destination, they knew inwardly that it existed and that they would arrive. They set out with maps, calculations, and conviction. But strictly speaking, it wasn't knowledge in the scientific sense until the sleds stopped and the flag was placed. Only then could they say, "We are here." So with this work. We know by faith. We set out. We endure days when the weather is thick and the compass seems to waggle. We have evidences, seals on the ice, stars breaking through, changes in the wind, and these tell us we are on course. Then, one bright day or one bright night, there is arrival. The presence announces itself. Not as emotion, not as a rapture to boast about, as certainty, as quiet authority, as a change in the very atmosphere of consciousness in which you know that I is here, and I will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be deceived by the early stages. Many of you will sit down and find only imagination, or what seems like imagination. Or you will meet only silence. The mind will say, "Nothing is happening." Don't allow that judgment. The silence itself is often the first evidence, the wind dropping after a storm. Why? Because the mind has been the storm, and the first act of spirit is to hush it. When the radio moves from static to a low hum, you don't turn it off. You listen more closely because you know you are near the station. Even so, when you begin to feel the simple stillness, or a soft loosening of fear's grip, or the barest sense of inner okayness, treat it as evidence. Stay. Consent. Let the I move from your saying it to its saying itself. Again, as these evidences come, you are not to make a shrine of any one of them. They are waymarks, not the city. The goal is not belief about I am. The goal is the unmistakable inner recognition of I as presence. That recognition does not argue. It does not plead. It does not need props. It announces, and in its announcement, the mind is quieted, the body is calmed, and the next right step becomes obvious without strain. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, and you begin to feel that liberty as a natural state rather than a borrowed moment. And here is the sober word that must prepare us for what follows. The great obstacle is not lack of sincerity, nor ignorance of phrases. The great obstacle is the tyranny of the finite mind and the habit of living as its victim. The mind wants to seize infinity and reduce it to an idea it can manage. It wants to chatter where it must be still. Never forget that. We are not going to think our way into I. We are going to live quietly into the day when I unveils itself. And that unveiling will be the end of concept and the beginning of knowing. Now, to make this very plain, the mind is a fine tool, but a finite one. Use it for columns of figures, for drafting a letter, for arranging appointments, for building a bridge. Bless it for that. But do not demand of it what it cannot do. The mind, being finite, cannot embrace infinity. It can conceive about God. It cannot contact God. It can read, argue, compare, and systematize. It cannot reach beyond its own fences. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. But the mind by itself is not spirit. Never forget that. Stop to think. God cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled. No microscope, no microphone, no telescope will lay hold of life itself. You cannot put spirit on a slide or capture it in a decibel. And if you set out to find the infinite in the realm of the senses, you are in for futility. Like tuning a radio for a fragrance or using a yardstick to weigh compassion. The instruments are good in their place, but they do not meet what is beyond them. Now let me illustrate that. Not long ago, a brilliant professor, Oxford-trained, celebrated in his field, was faced with what the physicians called an incurable condition. He wrote publicly of it. His mind surveyed the horizon with exquisite logic and saw only an ending. He could dissect language, frame an argument, correct a syllabus. But when it came to the hour of mortality, the mind, left to itself, reported darkness and annihilation. Do you see? The mind did not fail in its own realm. It simply reached its limit. The natural man receiveth not the things of God, for they are spiritually discerned. It requires a different faculty than the faculty of the human mind. What faculty? Call it intuition, spiritual discernment, the capacity to rest as consciousness itself. Artists touch it when a melody comes whole and they cannot tell you how. Mathematicians confess that the great steps arrive in a leap beyond chalk and theorem, and only afterward are dressed in symbols. They reach out where the mind cannot go, and then return with something the mind can carry. Even so with us. We are not asked to despise the mind. We are asked to place it under the government of I, and to rise, for a few moments at a time, above its chatter into the quiet where the infinite announces itself. It isn't too difficult to understand this. The difficult thing begins an hour later, when you find yourself back in the mind's whirl and forget that there is a way to be still. You will not think your way into I am. You must learn to be still enough for I to reveal itself. Therefore, our instruction cannot be more reading, more arguing, more phrases hurled at the sky. Our instruction must be a practice, simple and repeatable, by which we consent to lay the tool down and return to the I beneath thought. Until, one bright day, that presence which cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled quietly announces, I am here. And in that announcement, the mind is given its rightful task, and you are free. Now here is the missing instruction. Don't repeat I am as a phrase to hypnotize the mind. That is autosuggestion, and it has a short reach. Stop to think. If repeating words could do it, the world would be free by now. Words about God are not God. The name on the envelope isn't the letter inside. The practice is inward invitation, not outward recital. The practice is consent, not command. So quietly, softly, within yourself, repeat only the word I. Not loudly, not rapidly. Gently, as you might greet a dear friend at the door you have longed to see. Say it once. I. Then wait. Give it a little space. Say it again, so quietly you are not sure whether you said it or heard it. I. You are not trying to make anything happen. Don't allow the mind to urge you to perform. The purpose of the word is to turn attention to its source and to let attention rest there. Now let me illustrate the pace. In the beginning, you may find yourself saying I every few seconds, like placing stepping stones across a stream. Good. As the inner current steadies, widen the interval. Let the word be fewer and softer, until the point is not the sound of I, but the stillness into which you dropped it. You will notice that the space becomes sweet, substantial, like a quiet room in which a presence sits with you. That is the direction. The word points. The word is not the thing. Never forget that. What are you watching for? A shift that is unmistakable when it comes. At first, it is you saying I to remind yourself. Then, without strain, it seems to arise of itself, as if an I deeper than thought speaks itself within you. There is no trumpet, no excitement. It is quiet, sure, impersonal, and yet more intimate than your closest feeling. It does not flatter the personal self. It eclipses it. The personal chatter slows. The anxious claimant called me becomes less insistent. The true I, which cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, stands forth as the atmosphere of the moment. In that announcement, there is authority and peace. A caution. Do not use this sacred word to inflate a personality. Don't allow the mind to seize upon I and make a larger me out of it. You are not dressing up the ego in spiritual garments. You are letting the personal sense become quiet, so the impersonal I, which is life itself, may be known. The fruit of it is humility, not grandiosity. Gentleness, not assertion. It isn't too difficult to taste this for a few moments. The difficult thing begins an hour later when the world's claims knock. But we will take this step in order. In a moment, we will make it practical with a short period of meditation so you can feel the cadence of it. Then we will speak of what to do with it the rest of the day, how to measure progress by remembrance, and how to let I govern mind, body, and affairs without strain. For now, keep it simple. Softly, gently, within. Repeat I until it begins to announce itself as presence. Now, for a few moments, let us meditate. Sit easily. Let the hands rest where they are comfortable. Let the shoulders drop. Let the jaw be soft. Let the breath come and go of itself. We are not trying to make something happen. We are consenting to what always is. Let the mind know, kindly, that for these minutes it is the servant, not the master. It will have its proper work in due time. Now we are establishing contact with what cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, and yet is the life of us. Quietly, within, say the word I. Just once. I. Then wait. Don't strain to hear anything. Let the space be there. Again, very softly, as if you are not sure whether you spoke it or heard it, say, I. Then wait. Let it be more listening than speaking. If thoughts try to crowd in, do not argue with them. Let them pass like people walking on a street you are not traveling. Place another stone across the stream. I. Then wait. Feel that the point is not the sound. The point is the stillness into which the word drops, and the subtle sweetness that begins to form around it. Now, let me give you a vantage that helps. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting above yourself, right here at the crown, as if seated a few inches above the top of the head, looking gently down upon the mind. See the thoughts move below like clouds. See memories rise and fall. See plans present themselves. See fears flutter and then dissolve. Don't go down after them. Remain here, still, as I. The mind is there, like a fine instrument on a table. You are here, the owner, unhurried, unharmed, watching. From this quiet height, say within once more, I. Then let it say itself if it will. As you rest here, listen as if a voice, not of words but meaning, moves in your own being. I will never leave you, nor forsake you. I go before thee to make the crooked places straight. Fear not, it is I. Neither do I condemn thee. Peace, be still. Let those be heard, not preached. Do not repeat them loudly. Let them rise like warmth from a hearth. If the mind says, I'm imagining, do not allow the judgment to disturb you. Stay in the hearing. The sheep know my voice. You will know it by its tone. Quiet authority without push. Tenderness without sentiment. Notice what begins to happen. The pressure in the forehead eases. The breath is not something you manage. It carries you. The shoulders let go of their argument with the world. The mind is no longer a tyrant. It waits. There is a sense, however slight, of being carried rather than carrying, of being upheld from within. Where the spirit is felt, liberty appears as a simple atmosphere. This is contact. Not fireworks. Contact. Now we will close this few minutes with a seal. Say within, without strain, "This I is the life of my being. It governs mind and body." Then be still again. No asking, no pleading, just a brief resting in that acknowledgement. I, and let the silence have you. It isn't too difficult to sit quietly for a few minutes in a room like this and feel the softening, the quieting, the lift. The difficult thing begins an hour later, when the telephone rings, when the inbox is full, when a child needs you, when the body offers an old report, when the mind starts its litany. That is where this becomes a way of life and not an interlude. Never forget that. Progress in this work is not measured by a peak. It is measured by the increasing frequency and stability with which you return to I throughout the day. Now, let me give you the structure, because without structure, the day claims you. In the morning, give the first 10 or 15 minutes, not after the headlines, not after the rush, to quiet recognition. Sit, as we just did, and let the I say itself within you. Seal it. Then go about your tasks. And then, at first, make the practice hourly. Not dramatic, not public. Hidden. Every hour, pause for a breath or two. 10 seconds is enough. To turn inward. To say softly, I. And to wait just long enough for a hint of that same presence to be felt. Then return to your task without strain. That is all. 10 seconds of acknowledgement and receptivity. An inner nod to the source. Then back to the ledger, the sink, the steering wheel. Stop to think how practical this is. You are not adding a burden. You are changing the atmosphere. You are not trying to hold a thought for an hour. You are consenting each hour to let the presence be first. Acknowledge him in all thy ways, not as poetry, but as a schedule. If you forget at 10 o'clock and remember at 10:15, take it then. If you miss an hour, take the next one. Don't allow the mind to turn this into condemnation. Measurement is not a whip, it is a yardstick. By the degree of your success in remembering, 3 hours today, 5 tomorrow, 8 next week, you can honestly know that the current is strengthening and the habit of absence is losing ground. Now let me illustrate that. You are in traffic and feel the tightening begin. Before you reach for the horn, take one breath, inwardly say, I, and wait 2 heartbeats. You are in a meeting and a criticism arises. Before the mind drafts its defense, take 10 seconds, I, and listen. You are in the kitchen. The child spills the milk. The old impatience climbs your throat. Pause. I. You are not withdrawing from life. You are letting life govern the moment. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And you will feel it as a small loosening, a better word chosen, a right restraint, a wise act. Do not retire to sleep without the night seal. However late, however tired, let the last conscious act be a return to I. Not long, just enough to say within, thank you, and to rest for a few breaths in the awareness that the presence that kept you through the day keeps you through the night. Then let go. You will find that the night watches are different when the pillow is laid on I. This is how absence yields to presence, not by fireworks, but by remembrance, brief and faithful. And as this rhythm steadies, we must face the chief sabotage, being victimized by our own mind and our own body. For if you forget who you are, those instruments try to run the house. In our next step, we will see how I, recognized as presence, restores dominion so that mind and body serve and do not rule. Now let us take that step. Dominion is restored the instant you stop locating yourself in the mind that argues and fears, and begin to rest as the I that observes and governs. Say it within. This mind is mine. This body is mine. If they are yours, you are not theirs. You are not the stream of predictions, regrets, and rehearsals of disaster. You are the quiet watcher of that stream, the governor, the owner. Never forget that. Don't allow the mind to hypnotize you with tomorrow's terrors or yesterday's replays. Don't allow the body to frighten you with its temporary reports. You, as I, are senior to both. Now let me illustrate that with the mind. A worry begins to spool. What if the result is failure? What if they reject me? What if I am found out? In that very first tightening, step back a half-inch within and acknowledge I. Not I, the frightened personality, but I, the indwelling presence. Wait a breath. Let the storm speak if it will. You do not have to answer it. You quietly assign your mind its rightful task. Later, you will draft the letter. Now, be still. Do you see what happens? The thought stream loses its authority. The edge dulls. A space opens. Into that space flows a calm that the mind did not generate. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And the mind, in that atmosphere, becomes the fine servant it was meant to be. Capable, precise, but not dictatorial. Now the body. Treat it as an instrument, not a legislator. It reports sensations. It does not pass laws. A pulse quickens, a pain flashes, a weariness sets in. Before you run to conclusions, acknowledge I. Let life, because I is life, govern its instrument. You will notice, often very quietly, that the breath evens, the stomach softens, the shoulders release. The rhythm of the body begins to answer to peace rather than to suggestion. We are not speaking of denial. You are not saying there is no sensation. You are saying, this body is mine, and I, as life, govern it. The fruit is practical. Symptoms lose drama. Resilience returns. The body serves your purpose instead of dictating your day. In affairs, the same government operates. An email arrives, sharp and unfair. The old habit leaps to defend. Pause. I. 2 lines later, your reply is accurate and kind instead of clever and cruel, and the relationship softens. A bill comes due with no evident channel. Instead of panic, you return to I, and in that atmosphere, a step you had not seen shows itself. An honest call to make, a waste to cut, an opportunity you had ignored, and supply appears where strain once ruled. This is not personal willpower. Will tightens. Presence opens. This is not denial. Denial shouts at appearances. Presence turns from them to the deeper government of life and lets action flow from there. Do not bully the mind or scold the body. Bless them as faithful instruments. Place them again and again under the authority of I. Let the practice be gentle and firm. Inwardly acknowledge I. Wait a breath. Then let right thought, right word, right step follow. As this stabilizes, you will find that you are no longer the victim of moods, headlines, or pulses. You live from the center out, not from the circumference in. Where the spirit is consciously present, there is liberty. Liberty in thought, in flesh, in circumstance. And now we must carry this government into the very places the day will challenge you. Fear, lack, sickness, and guilt. Not as a new formula to throw at problems, but as the one instruction we already know. Turn from the appearance to the presence of I, and let the next step be revealed. We will take them one by one. Now, let us take them one by one as promised. Here is the moment of need protocol. Simple, repeatable, the same everywhere. Stop. Turn within. Say softly, once or twice, I. Then wait. 3 heartbeats, 5, until the faint inner shift is felt. A loosening, a small quiet, the sense that you are not alone, that you are upheld. Do not speak, do not hit send, do not choose until that hush appears. Then let the next word, the next step, arise from there. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. You will feel it as a right restraint or a right release. Fear. Don't battle fear with thought. Fear lives on argument. If you argue, you feed it. In the first tightening, news, a diagnosis, a late-night sound. Stop. I. Wait. Let the presence be felt more than the picture. Listen for that interior assurance that has no push. Fear not. It is I. Often you will notice, while nothing external has changed, fear has lost its authority. Your breath returns to you, your hands steady. Then speak or act from that steadiness. You may find that the same words you were about to say come now without edge, or you may find new words altogether. The point is not bravery. The point is presence. Lack. Don't outline supply. Don't beg heaven to meet your plan. Turn from the calendar and the account, even for 10 seconds, and acknowledge I as fullness. I. Wait. Let gratitude rise before the figures justify it. Then watch for the next honest step to surface of itself, a call to make, a service to render, a waste to release, a talent to bring forward that you had hidden. Supply flows along the channel of right action shown by presence, not along the ruts of fear's hurry. You will find sufficiency without strain, where strain once dictated your choices. Sickness. Don't make the body your God. Don't hate the body either. Place it under government. 1. Life governs its instrument. Wait. Often the first evidence is peace, and then, in that quiet, the body answers with ease. A softening, a warmth, a release. From this atmosphere, the sane next step appears. Rest, counsel, nourishment, a change in pace. But now as obedience to peace rather than panic. We are not denying sensation. We are denying its right to rule. Guilt and what is called sin. Self-condemnation is not repentance. It is another form of ego. Stop. I. Wait. Let the inner sentence be heard, not as doctrine, but as living reassurance. Neither do I condemn thee. And then hear the rest. Go, and sin no more. Reformation is the fruit of contact. In presence, the taste for the old act dries up. The hand that used to reach for it does not reach. The mouth finds it cannot shape the old sharp word. And where amends are required, the courage to make them appears without drama. Never forget this. The same I meets every claim, because it is the same presence. Only the scene changes. Office, kitchen, hospital, courtroom. The method does not. Stop. Wait. Then move. And lest you imagine this is mystical ornament, remember that actions ripen out of this contact with greater accuracy than the cleverest planning. Solutions that were not on the chart, words that carry weight, designs that solve the real problem and not its shadow. In a moment, we will see why inventors, artists, and saints touch this same inner source, and why transcendence proves itself in results. But for now, carry this protocol into the next hour, and let the evidences begin to gather. Now let us keep our promise and make this very plain. Transcendence is practical. Stop to think. The greatest steps in science, in art, in invention, do not come by adding one more column of figures to another column of figures. They come in a moment when a man or a woman touches something beyond reasoning. Call it inspiration, intuition, spirit. The mind prepares, it studies, it arranges, but the leap, the arrival, is from a source that cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, and yet delivers what the mind alone could not. Now let me illustrate that. Edison was famous for his long hours, yes, but listen to those who worked with him, and you will find that he also knew how to grow quiet, to doze with a metal ball in his hand, so that the dropping of it would wake him at the edge state where ideas arrive. That is not superstition. That is a man consenting to be still. Einstein, with all his mathematics, told us plainly that the decisive insight came as a picture, a thought experiment of riding on a beam of light, arriving whole before the equations were built to house it. Charles Steinmetz, the wizard at General Electric, could sit beside a roaring generator and, after a period of silence, mark one small X where the correction must be made. The story goes that he billed handsomely for that X, not for the chalk, but for the knowing where to put it. Do you see? The knowing arrives first. The method follows. So with the arts. Beethoven, unable to hear with his ears, heard with an inner ear, and set down symphonies the flesh could not have delivered to him. Mozart confessed that entire passages came finished, not assembled note by note. Writers speak of dictation, sentences arriving as if from a wiser region than they could claim. Sculptors say they see the figure inside the stone and only remove what is not it. They touch a level of awareness beyond the chattering mind, and then they clothe it in notes, in words, in marble. It requires a different faculty than the faculty of the human mind, and yet it employs the mind and the hand beautifully once the contact is made. Now tie this back and keep it close. What they call inspiration is what we call contact. And contact is not escapism. It does not float you off into dream. It brings you down into accuracy. Judgment is cleaner. Timing improves. You make the call at the right minute, not an hour early or a day late. Compassion deepens. You say the needed word without edge. Efficiency rises. You stop doing the extra 5 foolish things that busyness demands when presence is absent. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And in practice, liberty shows up as right action with less strain. A warning is necessary. If your so-called practice makes you impractical, dreamy, irresponsible, late with your duties, sloppy with your accounts, don't allow yourself to call that spirituality. That is mental fog. Presence sharpens you. Presence trims the waste, dissolves the hurry, and steadies the hand. By their fruits ye shall know them. The fruit of I is order, kindness, accuracy, sufficiency. The fruit of self-hypnosis is vagueness and excuse. And never imagine that this is reserved for geniuses. The same I is in the clerk at the counter, the nurse on the night shift, the mother at the sink, the craftsman at the bench. Contact will show you the next honest step in your little scene as surely as it showed the formula to the mathematician in his. Therefore, we gather all of this into a livable rule of life. Not a grand program, simple, repeatable, measurable. In a moment, I will give it to you in 3 movements you can carry in your pocket: morning recognition, hourly remembrance, nightly acknowledgement, so that the engine of practical wisdom and right action is not an accident in your day, but its atmosphere. Now let us gather this into a rule of life you can live with, carry in your pocket, and measure. 3 anchors, simple and steady. Morning recognition. Give the first 10 or 15 minutes of the day, before headlines, before talk, before the rush, to quiet acknowledgement. Sit as we have sat, and let the word I turn you within. Softly, not hurriedly. I. Be still. I am here. Then listen as if you could hear meaning without sound. I go before thee. I will never leave thee. Do not try to produce a sensation. Let the atmosphere form. When it does, seal it with one clear recognition. This I governs mind and body, precedes me into this day. Then rise and go to your tasks. Second, hourly remembrance. At first, make it literal. Each hour on the hour, or as near as your duties permit. 10 seconds is enough. Stop, even in motion if need be. Within, say once or twice, I, and wait for 2 or 3 heartbeats until the faint inner loosening is felt. That is contact renewed. Then back to the ledger, the patient, the wheel, the sink. Acknowledge him in all thy ways is not poetry. It is your schedule. Don't allow the mind to turn this into burden. If you miss an hour, take the next. Gentle persistence wins this race. The return itself is the victory. Third, nightly acknowledgement. However late, however worn, let the last conscious act be gratitude and rest in I. Not long, quietly. I. Be still. Thank you. I am here, and thou art here. I will never leave thee. Lay your head down in that. You will find the night different when it closes on presence rather than on worry. Now, a self-check you can use all day. When irritation rises, when fear tightens, when haste begins to push, contact has been lost. Don't analyze it. Don't debate it. Don't rehearse reasons. Stop. Turn. I. Be still. 3 heartbeats. Let the hush appear, however slight. Then speak, write, or act. Where the spirit is felt, liberty appears as right restraint or right release. You can measure your progress by how quickly you notice the loss and how faithfully you return. Never forget that. Stop to think of the end we are seeking. Not a constant emotion. Feelings will ebb and flow. Not a parade of dramatic miracles, though evidence will come. The goal is stable awareness, a steady atmosphere in which harmony shows itself as order, right timing, sufficiency, and a growing health of mind and body. First faith, then evidences, and then, without fanfare, one bright day or night, the presence announces itself so quietly that you wonder how you ever doubted. From that hour, practice continues, but under a new government. So take this rule and live it. Morning recognition, hourly remembrance, nightly acknowledgement, gentle persistence. When you forget, return. When you slip, return. When you doubt, return. Be still. I am here. I go before thee. I will never leave thee. Rest in I. Let it announce itself, and then go about your day under its government. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Let that liberty become the atmosphere of your day. Thank you.